What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we'll be joined by Philip Rossman-Reich from Locked On Magic to discuss Paolo Banchero's incredibly strong start to his NBA career. What did Paolo Banchero look like during his debut? How is he meshing with the other young talent on the Orlando Magic roster? We're going to get there after a quick message from our friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for betting football and for the start of a brand new basketball campaign. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every single game that you can get your hands on. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every single sport out there. They've got you covered for NFL, they've got you covered for college football, NBA, MLB postseason, all the fighting odds, UFC, MMA, boxing, you name it, they've got you covered over at BetOnline. Right now, you can go take a look at who the odds-on favorites are to be this year's NBA Finals matchup. You got to predict the exact matchup right now. The favorites at the top of the list, Boston Celtics versus Golden State Warriors, a repeat of last year's finals matchup. Then after them, you got Boston Celtics versus LA Clippers at plus 1,700. You got the Bucks versus Warriors at plus 1,750. The Bucks versus the LA Clippers at plus 1,900. And then rounding out the top five, the sleeper candidate here, you've got the Brooklyn Nets versus Golden State Warriors at plus 2,100. So for all of those odds and more, be sure to check out betonline.net to learn more about the trends in action available to you. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Joining us now is Philip Rossman-Reich from Locked On Magic. You can follow on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. And Philip, Paolo Banchero jumping onto the NBA landscape in a big way with his debut against the Detroit Pistons this past week. Coming out of the gate strong with 27 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. He's looked really good through 3 games already. What did he look like just in his NBA debut on the court for the Magic?
I mean, he looked like he belonged. It's so much of it is just like, can you actually function on an NBA court if you're a rookie? And that's always the part you don't always know. But he looked like he belonged. And really what was super impressive about that game was it really didn't feel like the Magic were running a ton of things for him. Like they ran a few sets for him to get him some shots early on just to get him comfortable. But a lot of his baskets were cuts to open space underneath the rim, or transition plays, or offensive rebounds. He was doing a lot of the dirty work to kind of build up his point total. And then he was getting to the foul line. So he was kind of like had this variety of shot diet where the Magic didn't have to do a lot to get him involved. He was staying involved, and it felt perfectly natural and the way that the offense should be running. So it just felt like even if the Magic aren't going to him, he's going to find a way to impact the game offensively.
He also, pretty much ended Corey Joseph's entire career by just an absolute poster dunk, and that's one way to put an exclamation point on your NBA debut for sure. But based on what you're saying, Philip, is it, we've kind of had these conversations about the identity of this Orlando Magic team, the fact that they were kind of maybe missing the guy offensively, but it doesn't sound like they're basically just anointing Paolo as that guy right out of the gate, and he's having to kind of be rolled into what they're trying to achieve offensively rather than just being given the rock and saying, hey, go get yours.
Yeah, it just to some extent, I think that's definitely the case. I mean, look, Paolo's still leading the team in field goal attempts through the first part of the season. When the Magic needed baskets in losses to the Atlanta Hawks, and even in the fourth quarter against the Boston Celtics, they were finding ways to get him the ball. So it's not like don't make it sound like I'm not saying he's not involved or that he isn't getting his shots. He's definitely looking for his shots. He's getting to the foul line. He is finding ways to be involved, and the Magic are making him involved, whether that's as a screener in pick and rolls, as the ball handler in pick and rolls, or just finding ways to keep him involved. He's kind of doing whatever the Magic need him to do. They want to test him out as a pick in all sides of the pick and roll. They want to test him out as a playmaker. They want to test him out in the post. He's starting to shoot a few more threes. He didn't shoot any threes in that opener against Detroit, which is probably the most impressive part about that shooting performance. And the Magic want him to feel all the success and failure that comes with all of that. So he's a rookie. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. He would say he's turning the ball over too much, as most rookies do. But he's getting a feel for everything that this league can offer early on.
Well, what's been the most encouraging part about his play, through the early 3 games of this season so far for you?
Honestly, it's the unselfishness of him. And we saw that certainly in Summer League, but the rap on him coming out of Duke was that, he was an ISO scorer. He was a kind of, Jason, not that these guys are selfish, but a Jason Tatum, Carmelo Anthony type ISO scorer where you give him the ball, you clear out, you let him work. And the Magic have done that sometimes, but he's been really good at doing some of the little things. You mentioned the big dunk against the Pistons on Corey Joseph. The play that really stood out to me in that game from Paolo was actually a block that he had. He turned the ball over at the top of the key trying to initiate the offense. Killian Hayes raced by him for the steal, got to the other end of the floor, was going up for a layup. Paolo blocked that shot, started a fast break, ended up with the assist to RJ Hampton for a three. It turned, I think, what would have been an 8-point deficit into a 3-point deficit or a 2-point deficit at that moment. It was a huge play early in the fourth quarter. That's really set the tone for him. And he's found ways to do those little plays, whether it's rebounding, whether it's blocking shots, the plays that you wouldn't think a prototypical scorer would do. And that's been what's really impressed me so far.
How is Banchero kind of fitting in with all the other pieces on this Orlando Magic roster to this point?
I mean, I think as well as he can, because, so much of this Magic roster is still in flux. What's been really interesting about the Magic is they really don't have a point guard right now. They started the year expecting Cole Anthony to be the starter with Markelle Fultz out with a toe injury. Cole Anthony ended up missing that first game. Jalen Suggs played. They didn't have a backup point guard. So Franz Wagner was bringing the ball up a lot. Paolo Banchero is bringing the ball up some, and he's initiating offense, which the Magic want him to learn how to do anyway, but probably not to the extent that they've had to rely on both of these guys to do that. Jalen Suggs goes down in the Atlanta game. Didn't play on Saturday against Boston, so they're really only running Cole Anthony as the only point guard until Markelle Fultz gets back or until Jalen Suggs gets back. He just sprained his ankle, so who knows how long he'll be out with the Magic. It's double. Who knows how long he'll be out. But they've trusted Paolo to do a lot of different things. They're testing him in a lot of different ways, and it really changes game to game almost. And he seems to still find his way to get his points, to make an impact in the game, regardless of where the Magic put him. And I think that's ultimately what the Magic want to see from a lot of their players.
What's the area right now when you're looking at Paolo's game and kind of how he's looked through the preseason so far, through these first 3 games, that you're kind of coming away thinking, okay, that's the area, the problem area, if you will, that he needs to spend a little bit of time focusing on, kind of ironing out some kinks?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, I think turnovers are the biggest thing. That's been a team-wide problem. You expect that with young players, and you expect that. The thing that I think Paolo kind of needs to take is the next steps for Paolo, and it's probably not something that's going to develop this year, is obviously adding a 3-point shot. I think Boston, especially early on when he was struggling, I think he missed his first 4 shots. He missed his first 4 threes in Saturday's game. They were laying way off of him, daring him to shoot, because he does such a good job putting pressure on defenses, getting to the foul line. He had 11 free throw attempts in that game against the Celtics. He's averaging, I don't know how many free throws he's averaging, but he's averaging enough free throws for us to pull out the factoid that the Magic have not had a player average more than like 5 free throw attempts per game since Dwight Howard. Paolo's that kind of guy that puts a lot of pressure on defenses. And so I think the way defenses are going to adjust is they're going to tell him, we're happy if you're just shooting threes, if you're kind of probing and thinking too much and stepping into a mid-range jumper. If that's what Boston did really well early on in the game, that kind of took him out of things a little bit early on. And so the next step for him is becoming a big enough 3-point threat that defenses have to worry about him at all 3 levels. And obviously that's something that comes in time. And that's probably the next step for him offensively.
Yeah, you mentioning the 3-point shooting, just one of 6 against the Atlanta Hawks, and then I believe it was 2 of 7 against the Boston Celtics. So definitely probably an area of his game to kind of iron out, work on, and something that'll continue to unlock the rest of his game once he starts adding that to his bag. I know you mentioned both of their names there just momentarily, Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs. Any further updates on those guys, when those guys can be expected to be back, the severity of their injuries to this point?
Yeah, it's not clear. Markelle Fultz broke his toe like right before training camp. He is in not like those giant walking boots. He's in kind of like a sandal walking boot for stability. When I've been in the practice facility, he's just been kind of shooting standstill jumpers when he's out on the court. So he's not doing a ton yet. I still think he's a little ways away. Jalen Suggs had a really severe sprain. If you didn't see the fall, he kind of went up for a layup, got fouled, kind of went perpendicular to the floor, parallel to the floor, fell and rolled his ankle on his way down on someone. He tried to shoot the free throws, but could barely put weight on it. So it feels like it's a pretty severe sprain. With sprained ankles, you just got to kind of wait things out. And especially since that was coming off the sprained knee, I'm sure that in the same leg, actually, I think the Magic are going to probably be pretty cautious and make sure that he's fully healthy so he doesn't have any disruptions. Because to this point, Jalen Suggs' career has just been a constant injury disruption.
Paolo Banchero, the early favorite for this year's NBA Rookie of the Year award, probably, given some of the statistics and how loud he has come out of the gate to this point. How long will the Magic be without Markelle Fultz and Jalen Suggs? Of course, you're going to have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Magic. Philip, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
No problem. Thanks for having me on as always.